Hi, this is Ian at ungovernedrecords.com and we're back with a second tutorial on the basics of FL Studio. Today we're going to be mainly focusing on the channel rack and just basic patterns in a sense of how to lay down some patterns and some beats, how to drag across sounds. So let's get started over here just on a brief look at the toolbar. Okay, so up here, like I said before, we've got your little advisor down here telling you what everything is. Here's the master volume. It's going to control the entire volume for the whole of your project. I don't really touch this. I usually leave this alone. Every other sound I usually change either from the volume knobs on the channel rack or from using the mixer down here on the master channel. But mainly once we get into more advanced features, you'll be using like envelopes to control the sound throughout the whole mix. But for now, let's just have a look at this. And you've got your master pitch volume, which will pitch up and down everything within the project. But I have noticed sometimes when using certain virtual instruments and stuff, they do not get pitched. They seem to not be affected by the master pitch. So I'll have to look into that in another video later on. Up here, so we have the song pattern changer, which will change from your channel rack where you make your patterns. When this is highlighted, it's on pattern mode. So everything that we played, you'll see the timer going across here. This is actually played in the pattern and it will loop through, and that correlates there. Across there, and you'll see that if you switch over, it will play onto your playlist mode and loop round until after the first 4 beats. So stop that there. We'll change it back to pattern mode. So today we're going to just focus on pattern modes, and we'll go into moving over to the playlist later on. So let's set up our tempo. You can either left click and hold and drag up and down to choose your tempo. Yeah, there's a fine tuning tempo. That's maybe when you're sampling of such, maybe you want to use that, but generally you want to keep it as an even number. You can right click, and there are some presets all the way from 80 to 160 BPM. You can choose half speed as you want, or you can just tap in exactly the tempo that you want. So you can just tap 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. So that's set in, and that will choose exactly that tempo of what you've tapped in. You can always, I think there's a picker up here and a shortcut, maybe Control F5, and you can just bring that up and tap in exactly what you want. Yeah, but today I'll just literally stick it on a 90 BPM. Up here is your metronome. Your metronome just helps you keep time. So we're on the pattern mode again, and we'll push play, and you can see on every beat the metronome's playing. We use this basically to keep yourself in time when you're recording. To help you jump in on the track and get everything on time as much as you can. So we'll turn that off for now. You can go through some of these settings or check some of these other settings out in your own time. This one here is another one that you might want to look at. It's the countdown before recording, which will give you a nice 4 count on recording. So just make sure you get that one highlighted. It will help, or otherwise as soon as you push record and play, it's just going to start recording straight away. You won't have any time to be ready. It will be the same sound as the metronome, which counts you down. It'll tick along. This button here at the top, the typing keyboard to piano keyboard, this one here, if you have this highlighted, you're able to use your keyboard on your laptop or your PC as the input of a sound. So here, if I go to the channel rack, this one here is a nice deep kick drum. And I've got that selected. See that little, didn't mean to paint that. As you see, if you left click on these, this selects the item. You can click on the actual channel itself, but it'll bring up the channel settings. So this is the kick drum. This little light here, turned on green, means it's active and it's on. You've got your volume knob here and your panning knob there. So I've got the drum selected, and with this parameter up here selected on, I can use Q on the keyboard, on your computer keyboard. It seems to be the middle C of what the standard sound sounds like. So if I push that, the sound plays. If I play any higher than the Q, go up, it plays a higher note or higher pitch. And then if I go below that, so from M down, the sound gets a lot lower. This correlates for everything. So if you haven't got a MIDI keyboard or any sort of MIDI input, you're going to want to use your keyboard on your laptop or PC. But for now I'm going to keep that on, as I don't have my MIDI set up for this tutorial. Over here, just a few other bits, your CPU load, it'll show, and your memory usage here. Here's your time scale across your song, on the song position. I think it shows up within the pattern. Yes, it does. It counts down. I think you can change that from minutes, seconds to and change that from beats as well. I like to work with minutes and seconds myself. So then you have your buttons for your shortcuts up here for that's the playlist, and as I remember I said, it shows you the shortcut here. So if we click that, you can also push F5 and that will bring it up and take it away. Same again, F6 brings up your channel rack, and then your piano roll, and so on and so on. They're all here. Here's your browser plugin picker, as we went over, for picking your sounds. And there's some other bits and pieces as well, like the plugin picker, and there we go, there's the plugin picker come up. But we'll get into these a bit later on, and a few other things. There's a master monitor and a peak meter here as well. So that's a basic overview of the toolbar, but let's go back to the channel rack. So the channel rack here, this is where you're going to be making your patterns. It starts off initially at I think it's just the 4 beats it has here as a standard. I like to actually have this stretched out a bit, and you can pull this out, have it at a 16. I think as far as it goes. Let me just move it out a bit more. Yeah, that's as far as it goes. And you see, like, some of these are grayed out. So if I was to push play now on the loop, it would literally constantly just loop back through these 4 beats here. You see, it's just going to keep going back like that. Whereas, say if you wanted, just paint some sounds down to give you a picture. So when on these little lights here, you left click on them to light them up, and that means that on that particular light, that sound will be triggered. So here we go. I'll put claps there, a kick and a clap, simple as. And as you see, that now loops over through those 4 there. But if you want to extend that, you can simply just click on the grayed out there, like the transparency sort of area over here, and just extend it yourself quite easily. You can there is another way to extend it if you want the actual for each pattern to be extended out to a certain length. I think it only goes from 1 to 16, I think. If you go to options, you go to file set, you can go to project, and then yeah, look, beats per bar. You can actually increase that, and as you see, I'm increasing that with my scroll wheel, and it's going up, and I think it only goes up to 16 anyway. So yeah, so if you have got them grayed out and you want to work with a bigger area or a smaller area, it's up to you. You can extend that, and I like to have mine sitting at 16, and you can drag these backwards and forwards as well. Very much just like a normal window in Windows, and you can also scroll across like that. Right, so say we've got a basic beat then. So we have our kick, our clap, and we just put in a few claps across there, just left clicking to fill it in, like so, and then just make a real simple beat. And you right click to deselect where you want it to be. So if you've got a couple there, you can hold it, right click, and you can drag it all the way across, which will delete everything at once, saves you having to go individually. So we'll just quickly paint in a little beat here, which would be nice. Or, well, it might sound nice. Just put a little variation at the end. Just turn that down a second, and there we go, nice and simple beat going on there. So the best thing to do here is to name this pattern. I would usually separate everything from every single drum I usually separate. So I'd have my claps on a separate, or my snare on a separate, my hi-hat separate, and my drum would be separate. So what we can do here is literally, for now, we're on pattern 1. Up here we can go straight, if you scroll or left click and slide, we can jump to a new pattern. So don't be afraid, if you moved off, it's still there, you're just working on a different pattern. You can right click that and rename it, or you could alternatively press F2 and it'll bring up this box so we can rename it. So I'll just call it, we can just call it drums for now. Oh, we just call that drums. So we don't get confused later on, like when you're making many patterns, you're going to end up getting confused, and it's just easier when you coincide it with the playlist. So if I bring the playlist up, and like before I said, on the playlist here, select that, we've got our pattern selected, which is drums. We're on the paint tool, here on track 1, and we just left click. If your thing isn't snapping to the grid or the line, there is the magnetic tool here, and you can choose different snap settings. You can have it on none, so you can freely move it around exactly where you want to. Left click drops the pattern down, right click deletes it. So we just select that for line, so it just snaps nice and easy, or you can left click and drag and that will paint it down. So that's the basic overview of creating a nice simple pattern within the channel rack. You can left click and delete those. There's also some handy other tricks that you can use, like quickly. Say we got hi-hat here. That's a little hi-hat. You can right click on any of these channels here, and there you've got an option here to fill each 2-step, each 4-step, or each 8-step. So if we were to fill every 4-step, you see, there we go, it automatically fills it in for as long as our pattern actually is. So if we only had it down as 4 like we did originally, it would only fill it up to say there, and that would it would just fill those in there. We can delete those, and again we can set it out and set it to 2, so we can get a real basic drum pattern going like that. We have a simple so there's some nice little nifty things that you can do straight away just to really quickly get a beat down as quickly as possible, and then start overlaying with some instruments on top of that. Also some real basic things with the channel rack. As you can see here, you've got a little drop down arrow here where you can add a channel from anywhere. These are some of the VSTs I have that I can drop in. There's also an add button here where you can click on and you can add in certain things. I think Fruity comes with, some certain stuff like Fruity Kick, Fruity Keys, like FL keys and stuff like that. Load in as so, and just play along with that. Like very simple, just to quickly drop it in, and you can start playing some chords or notes or etc. whatever you want to do. With unlike the sounds that we have here, where it's just a single sound, where you're only going to be wanting to use one instance at a time, and say not, and every time you place a note down on the channel, if we come into the channel on the channel settings and you go to the wrench tool, and we come over to here, and you can see that this C5, which is middle C, is highlighted. If we were to right click, it will change the root note. You see here, root note. It will change the root note of the sound. So if I was to right click here and push Q on the keyboard, it plays a kick. If I change the root note to G sharp, it's going higher. You see, and if I change it this way, the root note is going to be lower. So whenever you put a note in on the channel rack here, it's going to always be playing that C5. For instance, with FL keys, if I play FL keys, it's going to constantly play the same note constantly. So what we use for that, instead of using here, you want to use a piano roll. So we can right click and we can push piano roll, and that will bring us up the piano roll. Let's get rid of those. Right click and drag to delete those notes. You can also control and left click to select a large area, and then you delete them or move them. But we're basically just going to go over the basics. So we can play. We've got snap on. Just snap those lines in. So there we go. It's a standard C major chord. So we can play that quite simply and easily. Like, if I played the right notes, wouldn't it? What I was thinking. There we go. I'm confused there for a minute. So that's how you'd input for an instrument. You'd use the piano roll, like necessarily if you wanted to use more notes at one time. So for instance, a chord like this is what you need to do. You need to use the piano roll. And as you can see, the piano roll correlates on here, and we'll play this number here, number 2, will literally be the end here. So if I place a note here, you'll see it'll be right at the end there. So that's a basic overview of using instruments and sounds. from your browser. Basically, I just literally have a downloaded beat pack here of drum pack, and I literally just, you can search for your sounds here for your packs, and you just left click, drag and drop. Dragging and dropping on top of another sound will replace it, and you won't be able to undo that, so be careful. If you wanted to add a different sound, you could either place it above or below that sound, and it'll put it in on a new channel. This will mute the sound. If you, I think it's, if you, yeah, you can right click and solo it, or you can control and click and it will just solo that sound, and click it again and it will bring all the rest back again. So this will turn off the sound. You have the channel panning, which will pan it left and right, and if you look at the top left again under this little monitor here, it will show the percentage of it. There's a little trick with knobs and sliders within FL Studio. If you left click and drag, it's going to move it left and right or up and down. You can, and if you've moved it and you didn't want to move it and you want it to go back to its normal position, you can either right click and click reset, and there you go, it's set it down to 0, straight down the middle. Or you can, if you've got a scroller on your mouse, just click in your scroller button and that will reset it. I think also you can push control and right click, or control and click, or alt and click, something like that. I can't remember. Yeah, alt and left click will also bring it back to its center. So there's many ways to center it again. Same with the channel volume. I think that's 80. I think they set the channel volume at 80. I think. Let's have a look. Yeah, around 80. I think it sets it, or 78. There we go. It's the standard set in FL Studio. Has it for each channel as has its volume set at. So that is the basic use of the channel rack. There are some other settings we can go into, like swing and stuff, like drum swing, where it literally moves, and it gives you more of a swing. It gives the beat more of a bounce, so to speak, instead of it being so completely on time, and so it sounds so computerized. If you just literally left, there's no humanization in it, and although it's quite, sometimes it can be such a subtle difference, but it makes the music sound more alive. It makes it sound more real, other than just it being so completely like this. It's not too bad. It depends on the sounds that you're using, but this will give it a little bit of a swing. And one way I can really demonstrate that is with the use of the hi-hat. If I now choose the hi-hat and set that in a 2-step, put the swing in, add some more steps in, how it jumps like that, you see. So if I move that back down, you see, if I move it up a bit, it has that more jump, it has that more, like, as you say, swing, which is a cool little feature to use. Sometimes if you change the swing in one channel, it's going to change in one pattern, sorry, it's going to change the swing for every single pattern, and for the entire playlist as well, where you put all of your patterns together. This is where your puzzle and your beat, this is where your actual full piece comes together, and that swing will affect the whole input. But the swing, I don't think the swing actually affects when you make something with the piano roll, when you put something in here. If you were to put like light up here and place instances of the sound here, and then apply the swing, and then send that to the piano roll, I think the swing gets automatically sort of slightly added in and compensated for, to give that sort of bounce. If not, you would have to manually do that yourself, but we can go on to that in another tutorial. So yeah, that's a basic idea of how to start making your patterns. So making your basic sounds, dragging them in, having a nice little beat going on there, and sending that straight to the piano, not piano roll, sorry, the playlist. So I'll just quickly demonstrate again. We'll light those ones up, stick them in there, stick that there, stick that there, give it a little bit of a swing. Right click, enter every 2 steps for that hi-hat. So now we're on a drum pattern here. We'll click open, or F5 for the playlist. Playlist pops up. Make sure we're on our painting tab, and we'll paint a couple of instances of that in there. As you can see, it says drums. It's all nicely labeled because of the pattern. We labeled it. We could also change, right click here and change the track name to drums also. We can also change the color as well if we really want to, and change that to whatever desired color you want, and it will color it out and make things a bit more easier to see in the long run when you've got this all filled up with everything. So remember, although we put this in the playlist, if we were to push play, it's only going to play the pattern in the channel rack. So remember, we have to switch to the song mode, and now it's playing down here in the playlist. So we can then, if we wanted to separate these and have them coming in at different times, we can simply come along here and say we wanted to cut out the snare from this and we want to put it on a separate pattern. There's a couple of ways you can do this. You could literally highlight the selected channel that you want and push Control C or Control X, which will cut it. Come up here, move up to a new pattern, and then we can, still selected on that, we can push Control V, and that will paste it in originally where it was. So now we've removed it from pattern 1 and we put it into pattern 2. We can then do the same, or what you can do is you can right click and you can clone. So that will clone the entire set. So look, there we have drums and drums 2. So then we could just simply go, right, don't want the drums in that one. So we've got, and we'll take out the hi-hats from there. So our second one, we can F2 and put hi-hats. And then pattern 3, we can say snare. There we go. So we're all separated out. Now, obviously down here, we've got the drums, and we'll change that to kick. And so we've got the kick here. And then obviously if we play that now, we're on song mode. We can press space bar to push play. It's just going to play the kick. So what we need to do is we come down here. We could either switch to that, and you see it changes there. Or we could come down here and select, right, I want some snares in there, and paint the snares in. And there we go, the snares are coming in. And then we can change, get the hi-hats out, and we can place the hi-hats in there. And if there's nothing else to play within the playlist, it's going to loop back around and play from the start. So there you have it. There's your basic startup to creating patterns and then placing them in the playlist. I hope that helps. We're going to go on to a little more detail with get into some more detail with the playlist and maybe the channels, and we're going into some more detail about the actual channels and the channel settings themselves, looking into the envelopes and a couple of the other like miscellaneous settings that we can mess around with the channels, and sending channels to the mixer and applying effects. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed. Hope that helped you out to get started in FL Studio. This is E at ungovernedrecords.com. If you like the video, please like and please subscribe. Take care.